I would say that the one thing that they really got right was Marty McFly's receding hairline.
They really didn't. You know, this is what you were supposed to look like. They predicted you'd look like at 47 years old.
What can we say about Back to the Future? It's more than a movie. It's a time-traveling cultural phenomenon. The movie ruled the box office for 11 straight weeks, but behind the scenes, there's a wild collection of untold stories and surprises most fans have never heard. So buckle up. We're going back in time to uncover the most astonishing facts behind this iconic film. Number 1. Michael J. Fox was not the person. Originally cast as Marty, Zemeckis' first choice to play Marty was not Michael J. Fox. John Cusack, Charlie Sheen, Ralph Macchio, and Johnny Depp all auditioned for the part, but they were unable to meet Zemeckis' standards. The one who finally got the part was Eric Stoltz. Filming started with Stoltz as Marty, but there were issues almost immediately, with Zemeckis feeling they weren't getting the laughs the movie needed. He found Stoltz to be too serious and unable to get the jokes. Stoltz played Marty as an intense teenager who was always serious about life. While his acting may have been superb, it was not what Zemeckis intended. The movie was written to be a science fiction comedy, but Eric was not as funny as they had hoped he would be. Eventually, 5 weeks into production, Zemeckis fired Stoltz and pulled in Michael for the show. This meant that the 5 weeks of filming were a bygone and had to be done again with Michael. Number 2. Michael J. Fox slept. During the production of the movie, after Michael secured the role as Marty in the movie Back to the Future, they encountered a huge problem. Michael was already acting in the hit sitcom Family Ties, and the television series producers were not excited about letting Michael go. Michael would only be allowed to act in Back to the Future, with the promise and assurance that Family Ties would always come first. He would also not be given any breaks while acting in Back to the Future. This meant that Michael had to work on the set of Family Ties from 9 to 5 and then move straight to the set for the filming of Back to the Future, where he would film till 4 in the morning. This was Michael's schedule 5 days a week for 2 months. He spent the whole day filming Back to the Future on Saturdays because that was the only day they could get daylight visuals with him. While his energy on set never wavered, behind the scenes, Michael was running on fumes and coffee. Number 3. The script was rejected many times. While Back to the Future remains one of the greatest scripted movies of all time, many people did not seem to think so before it was released. The end product of the movie was far different from the original script, which kept getting rejected and had to be edited several times. Some claimed it was too sweet, and others argued that a movie about the future would not sell well. So, the original script was rewritten about 40 times, including multiple times by the same studio. After a series of disappointments, it was finally accepted for production. Zemeckis was not a star producer, so he faced a hard battle getting people to take his work. Eventually, he had to make changes, like changing Marty's surname from McDermott to McFly. The famous clock tower climax to the movie wasn't part of the script. Instead, Marty and Doc would visit a nuclear test site in Nevada, and a nuclear explosion would send the DeLorean back to the future. This was changed because the whole sequence would have proved too expensive. Number 4. The time machine was not always a DeLorean Zero. The DeLorean in Back to the Future is now iconic. We only remember the car with the gull-wing doors because of the film. It almost was not the choice for the time machine, though. In the first drafts, the time machine was a time chamber, a room that Marty would go into and be zapped back in time. That then changed to a big refrigerator that Marty would climb into, and the fridge would travel back in time. But the worry was that kids would be influenced by the image of a refrigerator being used to go to the future, and would climb into fridges and get stuck. Zemeckis then had the idea of using a car, as it meant the time machine could be mobile and involved in more exciting scenes. He wanted something that looked futuristic and cool, so the DeLorean was brought in. A Ford Mustang was briefly bandied about. Universal's product placement team got an offer from Ford that would have paid $75,000 if the time machine had been switched to a Mustang. But this idea was also scrapped by Gale, who said that Dr. Brown does not drive a Mustang. The final decision regarding the time machine was that the DeLorean was the best option. The CEO of the DeLorean car company, John DeLorean, was grateful to Zemeckis for using one of his cars in the movie. After the movie came out and was a smash hit, he wrote Zemeckis a letter expressing his gratitude. He said, "Thanks for continuing my dream in such a positive fashion." Number 5. The name of the movie was almost changed to something else. Sid Sheinberg, who was the owner of Universal Studios, did not like the title Back to the Future. He sent a memo to Zemeckis and Gale outlining his reasons and asking to change it to Spaceman from Pluto. This name was based on a children's comic book about aliens from Pluto. Sid had suggested this because he was still not completely sold on the prospect of a movie about time travel being a hit. Now, Sid was a very important man who rarely made notes, but when he did, everybody listened. The memo he sent threw Zemeckis and Gale into a state of panic. However, Gale, ever the quick thinker, sent a message back to Sid Sheinberg, thanking him for that joke. Sid never replied because he was a proud man and did not want people to feel like he did not get his joke. And that was how the movie got to keep its name. Number 6. Einstein was not always a dog.
Einstein! Hey, Einstein, where's the dog, boy? Huh?
Einstein was originally a chimpanzee. In the first drafts, Doc Brown, played by Christopher Lloyd, had a pet chimpanzee called Shemp. This was changed to a pet dog called Einstein at the request of the head of Universal, Sid Sheinberg. Sheinberg told Zemeckis and Gale, "No film with a chimp ever made money." When Gale responded by saying, "What about Every Which Way But Loose?" Sheinberg said, "That's an orangutan, not a chimp." So the chimpanzee was fired, and the dog called Einstein got his screen time. In the movie, Einstein played an essential role as the first time traveler. Einstein was present at the Twin Pines Mall parking lot, where Doc Brown conducted his first time travel experiment. With Doc controlling the DeLorean time machine via remote, Einstein sitting inside it, and Marty filming, Einstein successfully blasted forward in time by 1 minute, leaving at 1:20 a.m. and arriving at 1:21 a.m. on October 26, 1985. Einstein, being a dog, was completely unaware that anything happened and happily went back into Doc's truck, unharmed. But before the dog could be found, Einstein was played by a stuntman in a dog costume. This is because, in the scene where Dr. Brown used the dog as a test subject while trying out the time machine for the first time, it would have been tough, if not impossible, to teach a dog how to ride a car. So a stuntman in a dog costume seemed like the right fit for the job. Number 7. Disney rejected the movie. Before heading to Universal Studios, which finally produced the movie, Back to the Future was rejected by Disney, and their reason for doing so was strange. They claimed that the movie was not as clean as they wanted it to be. What they were referring to was the plot of the movie. As Marty goes back in time and meets his parents, his mother falls in love with him. One of the major plot points of the film has Marty McFly, Michael J. Fox, trying to ensure that his time travel back to 1955 doesn't mess up his parents falling in love in high school, and subsequently, his birth. However, Marty ends up catching his teenage mom, Lorraine's, Leah Thompson I after her dad, his grandfather, accidentally hits him with the car. Instead of his would-be dad, George, Crispin Glover. At a later point in the movie, at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, she kisses him. While Marty's interactions with his mother were meant to be funny, Disney felt that the plot was too vulgar, as they were a family-friendly brand. They accused Zemeckis and Gale of wanting them to release a movie on incest. In an interview with Bob Gale, he describes the encounter. "We went in to meet with an executive and he said, 'Are you guys nuts? Are you insane? We can't make a movie like this. You've got the kid and the mother in his car. It's incest. This is Disney. It's too dirty for us.'" Number 8. Christopher rejected the role of Dr. Brown.
1.21 gigawatts! Tom, how am I going to generate that kind of power? It can't be done, can it?
Christopher Lloyd was recommended for the part of Doc Emmett Brown to Zemeckis by producer Neil Canton, who had worked with Lloyd on the adventures of Buckaroo Banzai across the Eighth Dimension in 1984. They sent Lloyd the script, but with aspirations of being a serious actor, Lloyd refused. He believed that acting in a comedy film would ruin his prospects of being cast for other roles in other movies, as he would be labeled a comedian. Lloyd was convinced to take the part when he met Zemeckis, who impressed him when he explained his ideas for the movie, and Doc Brown to the actor. Lloyd told Zemeckis he wanted to base the character on Albert Einstein, a man who was too intelligent and always seemed 5 steps ahead, and a conductor called Leopold Stokowski. Lloyd liked the idea and eventually agreed, and Zemeckis hired him. It turned out to be one of the best decisions he had ever made. Number 9. Bob Gale based the idea on a high school yearbook. The idea for Back to the Future came to Gale when he was at his parents' house rummaging around in their basement. He came across his dad's old school yearbook and wondered if they would have been friends had they known each other when they were both 17. Gale mentioned this to Zemeckis, and they turned it into a high-level story that captured the attention of millions of people. From the pages of the past came an inspiration for the future. While the idea came in 1980, it wasn't until 1985 that the movie was finally released. By then, the script had undergone several changes. Not just minor changes, but significant changes in the script. However, we can't complain because at the end of the day, we got a hit blockbuster movie. Number 10. Huey Lewis did a cameo criticizing his music.
Hold it, fellas. I'm afraid you're just too darn loud.
The powerhouse pop song The Power of Love by Huey Lewis and the News led one of the favorite soundtracks of Back to the Future. Lewis was hesitant because he didn't want to write a song called Back to the Future simply. Lewis submitted his new song The Power of Love, which proved a huge hit. He then added Back in Time for good measure. The song went to number 1 in several countries around the world, and Lewis himself cameoed in the movie. In the first act scene where Marty's band, the Pinheads, is auditioning for a high school Battle of the Bands contest, Lewis plays a schoolteacher who cuts the band short, announcing via megaphone, "Hold it, fellas, I'm afraid you're just too darn loud." The irony of the situation is that the song Marty plays in that scene, which he criticizes, was Lewis's very own song, which he had written. So, to have him criticize his music added both humor and wit to the movie. Huey Lewis initially declined an offer to have a cameo as the judge who calls out Marty's band, the Pinheads, for being too darn loud. But after some negotiating, he'd be in disguise, he couldn't be used in promotional materials, he would go uncredited. He agreed, and a great scene was made even better. Number 11. Things did not go smoothly. On set with Crispin Glover. Crispin Glover plays George McFly, the nerdy, insecure father of Marty. Glover is critically acclaimed for his performance, but there was some friction on set between him and Zemeckis. Over the years, stories have surfaced about what went on. Glover wanted the 47-year-old George we see at the start of the film to have his hair standing straight up on end, like Henry Spencer in Eraserhead. The problem was, they'd already started shooting. Zemeckis told Glover they couldn't do that, as it wouldn't match the previous day's footage. Glover said to Zemeckis, "Brando never matched," which, coming from a young, inexperienced actor, did not go down well. Zemeckis has said about working with Glover, "I was endlessly throwing a net over Crispin because he was completely off about 50% of the time in his interpretation of the character." At the end of shooting, Glover questioned the ending of the film. He thought the McFlys shouldn't be financially well off when Marty goes back to 1985 and said to Zemeckis, "Love should be the reward, not money." Crispin Glover did not return for Back to the Future Part 2, where the character of George only appears in 2 scenes and is played by another actor. Glover sued the studio for using his likeness. He received a settlement of $500,000 but the experience effectively ended his career in Hollywood. The lawsuit also led to a change in union rules for the Screen Actors Guild regarding using an actor's likeness without proper compensation. Number 12. Michael J. Fox learned to play the guitar. For his role, towards the end of the first episode, Michael plays the guitar, thereby inventing rock and roll. But what many people don't know is that Michael took guitar lessons. Zemeckis felt that even though Michael would not be singing in the movie, he should take guitar lessons to be able to add a touch of realism. Mark Campbell covered his singing. For the vocal performance, Zemeckis wanted it to sound like Marty was singing. So the music supervisor on Back to the Future, Bones Howe, put out a casting call to find somebody who sounded like Michael J. Fox might when singing. A young musician called Mark Chapman saw the ad and practiced to sound like Fox. He auditioned, won the part, and that's who we hear singing Johnny B. Good. Mark Chapman, who sang Johnny B. Good in the first two films, went uncredited to give the appearance that Fox was singing. Something that no one who saw the movie could have possibly thought. He did receive a special thanks in the credits, though. Number 13. Tom Wilson has his own Back to the Future script. Thomas F. Wilson plays the antagonist of the movie, the high school bully Biff Tannen. Over the years, Wilson has been asked the same questions by fans he meets so often that he has created a Q&A script to handle all of the recurring questions. Some of the questions and answers on there include, yes, I'm Tom Wilson. Yes, Biff from Back to the Future. Michael J. Fox is nice. No, I'm not in close contact with him. Christopher Lloyd is nice. Leah Thompson is nice. Crispin Glover is unusual, but not as unusual as he sometimes presents himself. Eric Stoltz originally played Marty, but was fired due to performance issues. We had a couple of personal issues, but it's all fine. Number 14. There was a last-minute replacement of a cast member.
I don't know, but I'm gonna find out.
If you have watched the movie The Office, you might recognize John, a character played by Melora Hardin. What many people may not know is that Melora had been the original cast for Jennifer Parker, Marty's girlfriend. But the switch of the main character from Stoltz to Michael changed everything. Melora was a few inches taller than Michael, and the directors were concerned that it would be too evident in the movie. So she was dismissed and replaced by Claudia Wells, who nailed the role perfectly. Claudia had been offered the role before Melora, but had turned it down due to her mother's illness. By the time the swap was taking place, the timing fit perfectly, and she was able to shoot the scenes. Although she did not get much screen time, she added a layer of softness and charm to the movie. She was, however, not featured in the sequels and Part 2 and was replaced by Elizabeth Shue. Number 15. Some scenes were almost cut out of the movie. One such scene was the fight between the Libyan terrorists and Dr. Brown. The scene almost cut out refers to where Dr. Brown steals plutonium from Libya to power the time machine. The Libyans, however, come after him with guns blazing, and Dr. Brown gets shot. A preview of that scene by cast members claimed that the starkness and brutality of that scene were shocking and threatened to take away the humor from the movie. Many found the scene disturbing, and we're worried about the reference to Libya and terrorists. It troubled many people that associating a country in the East could have dire consequences. However, Gale claimed that the scene would be kept as it added more drama and suspense to the movie. Later adaptations of the movie, however, tried to downplay that scene, with some avoiding it altogether. However, some scenes were not cut and were eventually deleted. One of them comes shortly after Marty arrives in 1995. Still in disbelief over what happened, Marty asks a woman several times to pinch him. Having gotten the wrong idea about Marty's request, she slaps him across the face. When she leaves, a police officer approaches Marty but says nothing. Though this does have some degree of comedic value, it adds very little to the movie. Thus, its removal was justified. Number 16. The sequels were both filmed at the same time. It's pretty standard now to film a movie series back-to-back, such as Harry Potter, Star Wars, and Lord of the Rings. But back in the 80s, it was much rarer to film two movies at once. Back to the Future was never intended to have a sequel. Still, the overwhelming popularity of the original prompted the rapid development of two follow-ups released in 1989 and 1990. The Back to the Future sequels were filmed like this, as a way to save money, and also because, initially, they were just meant to be one film. Eventually, they became too big for one movie and became the trilogy we know and love. That sounds like a lot of work. Number 17. They gave a glimpse of the end of the film. From the beginning, the foreshadowing of the ending is given at the beginning of the movie. The amount of foreshadowing threaded throughout Back to the Future is astonishing. The script is a masterclass in setup and payoff, with hidden messages and foreshadowing ever displayed on screen. One of the most notable moments comes in the very first scene. The opening sequence of Back to the Future sets the tone for the film with subtle brilliance and carefully planted visual cues. As Marty McFly steps into Doc Brown's seemingly abandoned lab, the camera begins a slow, deliberate pan across the space, revealing a rich, lived-in world of chaotic brilliance. It doesn't just showcase eccentricity, it tells a story. Among the countless timepieces ticking and clicking away is one particular clock that stands out. It features a tiny figure of a man hanging precariously from the hands of the clock face. This seemingly whimsical prop is far more than decoration. It's a clever homage to Harold Lloyd's iconic moment in the 1923 silent film Safety Last, where Lloyd dangles above city streets in one of the most famous stunts in cinema history. But more than tribute, it acts as a brilliant piece of foreshadowing. Later in the movie, Doc Brown finds himself in a strikingly similar predicament, hanging from the very clock tower that is central to Marty's race back to the future. It's a powerful bit of cinematic symmetry. The clock isn't just marking time, it's marking destiny. The filmmakers, particularly Robert Zemeckis and co-writer Bob Gale, understood that great storytelling isn't just about plot, it's about planting seeds early that bloom in unexpected ways later on. What begins as a silent shot of dusty clocks evolves into a metaphor for the entire journey. Time, fate, suspense, and the thin line between comedy and catastrophe. These kinds of layered details are part of what makes Back to the Future so enduring. It rewards careful watching. Every frame, even in its quietest moments, is part of a bigger puzzle. And in a story obsessed with time, it's only fitting that time itself would be watching back. Number 18. Christopher Lloyd looked older than his age in the movie. At the time of the shooting of Back to the Future, Christopher Lloyd was 47 years old. However, in the movies, it is observed that he looked as though he was older than 60. This is due to the makeup he was wearing, which made him look older than his age. This was done intentionally, of course. Dr. Brown is supposed to be an older man who has spent a good chunk of his life working in the field of science. Stress and time had gotten to him, making him look older than he was. And this was precisely what Gale wanted to portray. The picture of a man who worked long, odd hours, tinkering in a shop on what he believes could change humanity forever. Number 19. A lot of famous celebrities participated in the movie's best known for leading the rock band Van Halen, Eddie Van Halen played a memorable and often overlooked part in Back to the Future. It's when Marty appears in George's bedroom in the middle of the night, dressed like an extraterrestrial creature, and blasting a cassette labeled Edward Van Halen into his future father's ears. What many may not know is that those loud, blaring guitar riffs were supplied by the rocker himself, who wrote and performed the piece specifically for the film without pay. Elijah Wood also made his acting debut at just 8 years old in Back to the Future 2. Wood's very first role was in a single scene in Back to the Future 2, credited as one of the little boys playing video games. During the scene when Marty tries to impress two little boys with his gaming skills, With the arcade game Wild Gunmen, Wood's character criticizes Marty's playing. Number 20. The visual effects. Nearly Cost Lives Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, did the visual effects, and, to create the iconic moment where the DeLorean travels through time, they used a mix of practical and digital effects. This included 2 tire tracks laid out in gasoline. The tracks were then set on fire, so the flames shot up the gasoline tracks. This was filmed, and the footage was then sped up. They filmed a stuntman driving the DeLorean and superimposed that footage on top of the tire tracks. Lightning bolts and puffs of smoke were added digitally at the point where the DeLorean vanishes in the movie. Director of photography Dean Cundy had a camera rigged to a dolly so he could track the DeLorean and suddenly bring the camera to a dead stop when the car vanished. This created the impression of flames shooting out from the car when it vanished. On that, Cundy says, "Nowadays, it would all be digital. No way would you have fire and speeding cars around the stars." He claimed that his success was based entirely on how many movie stars he had tried to kill. The movie of the century. Back to the Future isn't just a beloved movie, it's a generational touchstone, a film that redefined adventure storytelling in the mid-1980s. Released in 1985, this sci-fi comedy directed by Robert Zemeckis and co-written with Bob Gale blended time travel, teenage angst, futuristic imagination, and classic Americana in one electrifying package. With standout performances from Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly and Christopher Lloyd as the eccentric genius Dr. Emmett Brown, the movie immediately captured hearts and imaginations. From the moment audiences witnessed that iconic DeLorean roar to 88 miles per hour, it was clear something special had been born. The film not only became an instant box office sensation, eventually grossing over $308 million, but also cemented its status as the highest-grossing movie of 1985. It earned 3 Academy Award nominations for Best Original Screenplay, Best Sound, and Best Original Song for Huey Lewis and the News' infectious hit, The Power of Love. Yet despite its meteoric popularity, it holds the quirky record of being the slowest movie ever to reach the $200 million milestone, taking 232 days, 2 weeks longer than My Big Fat Greek Wedding, which came 17 years later. Adjusted for inflation, Back to the Future would have earned a staggering $492 million in today's dollars, ranking it among the top 100 highest-grossing films of all time. But numbers only tell part of the story. The cultural impact was just as profound. The film transcended its era, gaining the attention of icons from every walk of life, including royalty and world leaders. Princess Diana was reportedly a fan, and in a now-famous moment, President Ronald Reagan even quoted the film during his 1986 State of the Union address. "Where we're going, we don't need roads," he declared, borrowing Doc Brown's words as a metaphor for America's bold leap into the future. The movie's influence didn't stop with ticket sales or presidential speeches. It sparked 2 equally successful sequels, a fan-favorite animated series, comic books, a musical, and an undying fandom that still thrives decades later. From cosplay events to DeLorean collectibles to deep-dive YouTube tributes, Back to the Future has become both time capsule and time machine, forever transporting us to the moment when one teenager, a mad scientist, and a flux capacitor made cinematic history. What do you think of these facts? Share your thoughts in the comments. Remember to hit the like button and subscribe. Before you go, click on the video displayed on your screen.